So you did warn us about the here we go and that you wouldn't be able to do it on screen. I can see why. It was worth it. Whoever did that does a hell of a job.
Right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
And that's why we keep it going.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Jofo in the Ring. I am your host, Jeremy Prophet, the harbinger of truth, the anointed one, the Black Messiah. Choose whatever name you want. I'll take it because I'm here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to give you the best damn podcast around with some of the best talent all around this world. And joining me today is someone who is no exception to that. She is a pioneer in the field of hardcore women's wrestling. I would say the first lady of hardcore deathmatch wrestling, someone who is diverse, who is talented, who is always present and has had such longevity despite dealing with so much brutality in a ring, and someone that I'm happy to call my friend. That is the one, the only, Mickie Knuckles. Mickie, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. We got some great weather here. We got a couple fans and air conditionings going on because it's so damn hot. But you know what? For Canada, that's a welcome change because it can get pretty chilly up here.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
I mean, I assume you probably wrestled in Canada at some point.
No, I
Really?
visited Canada once, but I've never wrestled up there.
Oh, okay. Well, then we're going to have to definitely change that. I'll have to put in a few words with a few promoters. And I can tell you, when I told a few people that we were going to be having this interview, they definitely showed some interest. I mean, I saw their eyes light up and they said, yeah, if we can get her down here, that'd be pretty awesome. There's a lot of girls I know would like to work with you, and some of the guys too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm down to work with anybody. I'm fair
know-
game. I'm kind of like greedy in that way. I can't pick a hole.
Well, that's all good. The more the merrier, I always like to say. And, I find it interesting that when I was looking at your career, you've had a lot of battles with both men and women. You actually fought for the IWA Mid-South world title against Chuck Taylor, who people might know from AEW with Best Friends. So you've never really discriminated. It's been women, men. What was that always the path you wanted to go on? You wanted to be someone who fights them all?
Oh, absolutely. Like when I started training, that was one of the things I had demanded. I wanted to be trained just like a boy. I didn't want to be trained with the thought in mind of, oh, she couldn't do it because she's just a girl. I wanted to be on the same level as a guy, or at least have the ability to try to be on the same level as the guys. So
Yeah.
I was very blessed. I was allowed to do that. So.
And if I'm not mistaken, I was looking up your training. You were trained by Chris Hero, right?
I was trained at IWA Mid-South School. At one point in time, I had like 5 different trainers, 5 different days of the week.
Oh, wow.
And then we would wrestle on Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday would be cleanup.
And you were about how old when you started training?
Actually, I was a week after my 18th birthday.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, sorry.
That was a demand. When I originally was supposed to be trained, they wouldn't train me until after I turned 18. And I happened to graduate high school like around the same time that I turned 18. So it was like all just fell into place. Graduated high school and then turned 18 and they started training me.
See, I think that's pretty cool because we have that in common. It was the same thing with me. I graduated high school. I was 17 when I graduated and then jumped right into wrestling school and pretty much never looked back. So I find it always cool when I get to do these interviews and I speak to someone that's kind of had a similar career trajectory to me. But how old were you when you first discovered wrestling and said, this is what I want to do?
I'm going to tell you right now, I think I was around 5. And we would always have, my mom was a single Catholic mother. So needless to say, most of our time was taken up by chores or schoolwork. And in the summer, it was way more chores. And then during the weekend, we'd be able to watch TV for only so much time. And I would always watch Sunday morning wrestling. Like wrestling came on where I lived on Sunday mornings. And I would turn on the TV and watch wrestling. My mom didn't like wrestling at all. She actually hated it. But it didn't stop me. And then my older sister started dating a wrestler. And to kind of get in cool with my older sister and to show off, I guess, he was training at OVW in Louisville.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, let's go on a date. We'll even take your little sister because I know she's a wrestling fan, and we'll go to the Louisville Gardens. So we went, and of course we were up in the stands. And I remember watching Miss Texas, Miss Jackie, come down the ring.
Hmm.
She gets in the ring, and then she cuts a promo. And all I remember is she was mad as hell. And so she cuts this promo, and then next thing you know, I look over and I see this guy walking down towards the ring. And I'm waiting because I'm not sure what's going on because I'd never seen a woman wrestle a man. So I was waiting for a girl, and then he gets in the ring and they start jaw jacking. And the next thing you know, she starts beating the hell out of him. And it's when she wrestled downtown Bruno at the Louisville Gardens.
Mm.
And I watched that and I was like, holy shit, that's what I want to do for a living.
Wow.
And didn't know how I was going to do it. Didn't know if it was even possible, but that was just always, that was the pivotal moment where I was like, that's what I feel like I just was meant to do.
Wow. Well, that's a really awesome story, and it sounds like, yeah, the bug just bit you right from there, and you never looked back, and you really blazed quite a trail for yourself too. Being that it's not every day you see a woman willing to go in there, having the ovaries to step in there, do a death match, take all kinds of punishment, and more often than not, in your case, come out on top. So I think that's great to see. How did the death match stuff come along? Was that part of the plan, or was it just, kind of something you stumbled into?
That was part of my plan, not my trainers. I was also trained by Ian Rotten. So like he did the deathmatch stuff, but he didn't want me to do the deathmatch stuff. I don't know. And I knew I had to make myself a commodity. I had to make myself something unique and special. And I knew I wasn't going to be the pretty one. I knew that. And I knew I wasn't going to be like the really like my athleticism is usually for brute and brawling. Like I know where my strengths are. I've always been a kid that got into fist fights. I've always been a kid that, liked to roughhouse and play. I was always a tomboy. I did backyard wrestling before I even got into wrestling. That's actually how I got hooked up with the trainer. And then, so I was always in that element for me.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it's just, I knew that I had to do something to set myself apart. And there wasn't a lot of women doing death matches. And I knew I had a really high pain tolerance. I knew that. And my willpower is if I see something I need to do or I want to do, I'm going to do it no matter what. Like I went through some of the hellish days of training, but I never thought to complain. I just thought, okay, this is what I need to do to get where I want to be. And then I would start begging to be in death matches and I would get told no. And I'm not doing that. And that's not my path. And it really took Pondo. Pondo was one that really was like, I don't see why you don't let her do it. I mean, we saw women in Japan do it. Why can't Mickie do it? If she wants to do it, let her do it. Let her try to prove herself. I mean, so it was really Pondo that was like, that kind of like gave the nudge forward for me to be able to do that. So if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have been allowed that. I'm sure eventually I would have done it anyways, because it's better ask for forgiveness than permission in some places. But I don't know.
Well, I think they had your best interest at heart when they, didn't want you doing that. But I think maybe they also just kind of underestimated you in
The
that.
long, maybe the longevity of a death match wrestler is not very lengthy. So maybe it was the fact of trying to make sure I was going to be able to handle a duration of wrestling instead of just this short little spurt of hardcore badassery. But
because I mean, I find it interesting that not only did you, as a woman going into death matches, but also at your age, you were pretty young going into that too. So I think that's something that maybe most people don't realize is that, you were a real brave young lady to say, I'm going to step in there with the guys in the barbed wire, in the thumbtacks, come hell or high water, I'm going to do this and prove it. So
I'm not necessarily, hold on. I'm not necessarily sure it was brave. You know what they say about us young ones. We're young, dumb, and full of cum. I mean, we're just stupid. And sometimes we do stupid things with the best intentions at heart. But yeah, I'm not sure if it was braveness or stupidity, but we'll agree to disagree.
No, that's all right. And you know what? I do think you are pretty brave because in the, I think, I don't know, close to 50 episodes I've done here, that's probably the first time somebody's cut me off and set the record straight. So, you know, it's okay. I can take a hit as well as I can give it. And I appreciate you doing that. It definitely endears you to me a lot more.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm Irish, Italian, Native American, Indian, you know. Ooh, I got like a whole thing going on here. I'm sorry.
I bet I could give you a run for your money and all the things that I am. But, you know, we can maybe save that for part 2 when we do this.
All right, that's fine.
Just keeping with the chronology here, one of the things I came across too was in your first match, it seems like you got injured or you took a bad bump. What's the story behind that?
So I don't remember my first match. After the second form, she caught me with the elbow right here, and it actually dislocated my nose and then tore that piece of skin that connects the lip to the gum.
Hmm.
Like everything. Yeah. So I was out on my feet and then continued to wrestle. And then at the very end, I'm not sure what happened. I guess she went to powerbomb me on the middle of the chairs, but instead of doing that, like, I didn't get all the way up, or she didn't, like, I don't know what happened. Like I said, I don't remember. And then she dropped me on my neck on the back of the chair. And only thing I remember is I was in a locker room and I came to and I said, did I have my match? Because I was so nervous before the match. I was like, because I had so much pressure. I was the first female trainee to graduate from IWA Mid-South Wrestling like school. And then like they had given me this pep talk beforehand, basically telling me don't fuck up. And this is like coming from everybody in the locker room, like Chris Hero and Punk and all, like just giving me this pep talk. So I was already a nervous wreck. So I went out there and then I guess I was sitting in the chair and I kept asking. And I think it was Corporal. He was like, damn it, Mickie, shut the fuck up. Stop asking the same goddamn question all the time. I'm like, did I already ask that? This is where I started remembering things again. And he's like, yes, you've asked that like 5 times. Shut up. And I was like, oh, I don't remember that. He's like, yeah, you keep saying that too. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm just gonna shut the fuck up right now. And then next thing I know, he was like Ian came back. He's like, are you able to ref? And I said, sure. Put on the ref stuff, went out there and finished refing the show. I was like, all right.
Wow. That's definitely a whole nother level of perseverance there. But at the same time, I mean, sending out someone with a concussion, which maybe at the time they didn't realize, you know, what concussions were. A lot of us took a lot of those unprotected chair shots and did a lot of things that we know a lot better now. But was that the first time you ever experienced a concussion?
No, actually, when I was in high school, I was playing softball and I was out in left field and the coach hit a pop fly. And I went to get my glove up because he called left late. When I got my glove up, the ball went completely past the bottom part of my glove and slammed me in the mouth. I was out cold. I woke up. When I woke up, everybody was coming around me. My coach was really, really excessively overweight. He was an overweight man, probably about in his early 50s, and he's running out. And all I can remember is being on the ground and looking over and seeing him going boom, 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 boom. And I kept thinking the Gumby song. Do you ever remember that show Gumby, or am I just really that old?
I know Gumby, the green
yeah,
guy. Yeah.
Maybe it's on YouTube. I don't know. But that Gumby song that plays when Gumby and Slowpoke or whatever it is running through, or yeah. So that started making me laugh. And then I looked around and I'm standing up and I remember being woozy on my feet and spitting out this blood, and my top lip is just flapping. And I'm like, what are we doing? Get back to practice. Totally out of it. And the coach is like, you need to go to the hospital. We need to call your parents. At the time, I was a ward of the state, so I lived with my sister. And he's like, we need to call your sister. And I was like, no, I can take myself to the hospital. I ended up driving myself to the hospital. He made me promise. It's a small town. It was like literally 3 miles up the road. Drove myself to the hospital, and they like scrubbed it out and then had to stitch it up. And I got like 6 stitches inside from here to here because it completely my teeth went through my lip and was like on the other side. So that was pretty cool. It was awesome.
And that was from a softball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Those things are freaking hard. I don't know why they call them softballs.
Yeah, no, they're definitely bigger than a baseball. You know, take it from a guy who played baseball 16 years. I'd rather get hit with a baseball than a softball any day.
Jeez, yeah. So that's the first time I got knocked out.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know, you're doing the wrestling, you're doing the hardcore and everything. I had actually discovered you, surprisingly, not through IWA Mid-South, but the first time I saw you was in Chikara, was during the Tag World Grand Prix when you came out to be Eddie Kingston's partner. That
Yeah,
was
that was a fun match.
yeah, and it was cool because like I didn't really know who you were, so I didn't know what to expect. And then I saw you wrestle and everything. I was like, oh, she's pretty good. She's got a bit of personality, got a lot of fight. And then I started to be able to follow more of what you were doing with IWA Mid South and everything. But that was back in the days, where the internet was not what it was today, with
Hmm.
YouTube and all the streaming services. So it really had to be, if you're friends of friends with somebody who's got some DVDs. And I knew a few guys who were in that Tag World Grand Prix. And so I had picked up the DVDs to be able to, see them in action, but then got to discover a lot of great talents like yourself. And it was really cool when, we started speaking there on Facebook. You had added me during the pandemic and everything. And I always remember you said something that was really cool was when you said, I was just like, why are you adding me? To me, you're a pretty big star and everything. You've accomplished so much. And I loved when you said, look, we can all learn from each other. And I think that that's such a good philosophy. And it's something that I always abide by and, tell a lot of the people that I, help to train and whatnot. So I think it's really cool that you're that down to earth and, still looking to learn as much as you can.
I mean, Ric Flair even said himself, "You never stop learning,
Mhm.
and if you do, maybe you shouldn't be in this business anymore." That's
Yeah.
the way we all should look at it. Like, there's always something new to learn. There's a new way to approach something.
Yeah.
There's
No,
there's always something.
yeah,
So
definitely. So one of the big pivotal points in your career, I remember, was when you had that opportunity with TNA, um, and then as you had just kind of got it started with them, I remember seeing that you had that leg injury, that unfortunate leg injury that happened on the dive there at IWA Mid South. I think you were against Sarah Del Rey, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe you could tell us a bit about that. How did the TNA thing come about originally?
so I was doing a series of shows up in Milwaukee, up in the Wisconsin area. And I remember I was going from Wisconsin and coming down to Chicago to do Ed Sheeman's show. And I was doing Carmine DeSpirito show up in Wisconsin. And while I was doing his show, I was wrestling Mischief. And we did this reverse Rana spot. But when she went back, something happened as I went back. And I felt like a warm pop and a hot burn right in the small of my back
Mm.
on one side. And it really fucking hurt. And I finished the match, went in the back and put my cold back on the concrete. I remember like taking my shirt up and putting it on the concrete, trying to get some relief. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong, and like nothing was comfortable, and it was really like it was shooting down my back. So I went to the hospital, and they come back and they told me that I tore one of the ligaments, and that the nerve was also exposed or something, and that's what was the burning, was the exposure and the damage to that sciatic nerve.
Hmm.
And I had torn some ligament in my back, and so I was like, oh shit, I gotta wrestle at Schumann's show tomorrow against Mischief. So then I come up with a smart idea that I'm going to tape up my midsection to give some support. So it's not just my lower back by itself. Maybe if I like stiffen it, it'll somehow absorb most of that and then give me a support where I can wrestle. And I get to the building and I tape myself up and I tell Mischief, look, if you don't mind, please, work with the stomach. I'm like, it's really like fucking hurting. And I go out to wrestle and I go to get in the ring and I'm having a hard time even getting in the ring because I can't bend over. So I have to lean back and kind of like slide on the top rope. And I try to play it off, but oh shit, that hurt. And so I go through the match and I wrestle. And we're doing all kinds of different spots. And Mischief completely forgets about my fucking back and she bends me over backwards across her knee and she's pushing down. And shit, the pain just like fucking shot. It shot both ways. It felt like everything was on fire. And then like I imagine that would be probably in hell, like that torture, that feeling. And I was like, I said her shoot name and I was like, Jesus, let me the fuck up. And I think I like I hit her and I really fucking whammed her. And then like we went ahead and finished the match. And I got in the back and I quickly cut the tape off and put my back up against concrete again. And this guy comes up and I can't really see him because he's standing with the lights behind him. And I'm on the ground and I kind of got my arm up above my eye anyways. And he's like, are you Mickie? And I said, yeah. He said, are you injured? I said, I'm fine. He said, that's not what I asked. Are you injured? And I said, well, yeah, I am. He said, what's wrong? I was like, I tore something in my back. He said, you still showed up to wrestle? I said, yeah. And then he said, he gave me his number and he took my number and he told me that he's going to have somebody give me a call on Monday from TNA. So I was like, okay. So I went home and the next day I get a call and I had missed the call and it went to voicemail and it was one of the secretaries, I guess, from TNA. And she left a voice message saying, asked me to call her back. And I was like, yeah. So I called it back and sure enough, and went to TNA and I was like, holy shit. And then they were like, are you busy? Are you booked anywhere on this date? And I said, no. They're like, we'd like to bring you in. And they tell me the deal. And I'm like, sure. So I get down there. And as soon as I get down there, I see some of the guys Ian brought in for IWA. So like I saw AJ and Loki, or not Loki. Oh, let's see. Really? I don't know. Oh, Homicide. Oh, he gonna kill me. I saw Homicide. I wanted to say Deep. I saw Homicide and a couple of the other guys, and they were like, hey, what are you doing here? So we start talking, and then I see Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett comes over and talks to me. He's like, yeah, they were telling me about you. I heard you can take an ass whooping. I'm thinking, okay, I'm a punching bag. Cool, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I can if that's what you want. He said, I also heard you can give an ass whooping. And I was like, if that's what you'd like. And he's like, all right, I think we're gonna get along just fine. And it was like a surreal experience. I never really felt like I belonged anyways, to be honest. But it was super cool. And then I broke my femur, which is like, eh.
And so, I mean, you being there, I know you said maybe you didn't feel like you belong there, but I think that the fact that you're unique, I think that's what I find really cool about you is that, you don't see someone like you that can do the things you do. And I've always been a big proponent of saying to get into any company, any major company, I feel that you have to offer something that they don't have. So as much as you may see it as being a misfit, I see it as you being unique and having something they didn't have, and they would want to present that to a national TV audience. So I guess it's just a question of perspective, but definitely, good on you for having got that. And I think it's unfortunate that it was cut short because I think you could have had a very long run there. One of the things I just wanted to say before I give it over to you. One of the things I'm curious about in the story you just told was, do you remember who the guy was that initially saw you and scouted you? And
Terry Taylor.
oh, it was Terry Taylor. Okay.
Yeah.
I just felt that was a pretty important detail for our audience to know.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. You were going to say something though, amidst my rant.
So no, you see it as a misfortune. I see it as karma doing what needed to be done. And that's not saying what happened to me was bad. I needed what happened to me. I needed my leg to break because after the first leg, like when the leg broke, I had the emergency surgery. And then in November, I went back and they told me I was healed. And I went back to wrestling because I was trying to get back on TV. And TNA said, they told me to take my time and heal, but everybody knows there's a shelf life to every offer. And so I was trying to hurry up and get back, and I couldn't run and I couldn't jump, and the pain was there. And like, I couldn't figure out what happened. And so I kept going back to the hospital, the same hospital that did surgery, and telling them something is wrong. It's not fixed. And they told me everything from it was phantom pains to I was just trying to get pain pills when, I didn't take the pain pills they gave me anyways. So with that being said, finally I went back in April and I said, look, I really need you to take an x-ray. Something's wrong. I'm afraid I might have re-cracked it. I'm not sure what's going on. I need an x-ray. So they gave me an x-ray. And the doctor walked in and said, Miss Knuckles, I don't know how to tell you this, but not only is your leg still broke, it never healed. I don't know why they told you in November it did. Here's the x-rays from November and today. There's an 1.5 inch gap between the 2 pieces of bone. The rod is the only thing holding it together. And I was like, that explains a lot. Like, I was wrestling these matches and I was doing these hardcore matches against like the hooligans, and like me, Sammy, and Moxley all tagged against, all 3 of the hooligans and a hardcore match. And I knew at that time my leg was broke still. I mean, we all did, but we made it work. I did the best I could. I fought through it, and then the second surgery, I had to wait for financial aid because they deemed it as not necessary, medically necessary. It was not life or death. So I had to have, I had to get some financial services.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a loan and then paid for most of the surgery. And then Ian ran the benefit show, but that money didn't go to the surgery. So
What did it go to? You mean you never got it?
I lived in the same house. So about a couple months in, moved. Okay, so here's what happened. When I was training, I was living with my boyfriend, and we ended up splitting up. And I was working 2 jobs. Sorry, this is Lena Vachon. She's a jealous bitch. Sorry. I'm not joking. Come here.
That's Luna.
Lena Vachon. Yeah. So anyways, okay. I was living with this guy, started dating him, and then we broke up, and I couldn't keep the apartment no more. I was leasing apartments from this lady that I was also working with, and she was a bisexual woman in her 40s with this guy that reminded me of some like evil villain out of the 70s. He was super creepy. And they both tried to have sex with me, and I turned him down. Well, then the next day I was told that my services were no longer adequate for the job that was supposed to be performed as a leasing agent, and that I needed to look for new employment.
Okay.
So I lost that job, and then I lost my apartment because I was renting my apartment from the same area, and they served me with eviction notices. So that was fun. And then
and all this while your leg is injured.
No. This is well before this. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
When I first started training.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know where I was going with this.
To Ian and the money for the fundraiser.
Yeah. So no, that wasn't where I was going with it.
Oh.
Yep. I don't know where I was going with that. Moving on.
That's okay. It was a compelling
It
story.
happened to me.
It's a compelling story nonetheless, because in thinking about it, I mean, to lose out on something because people pressured you into something that you didn't want any part of is something that should never really happen, and nor should someone have to experience, especially at a young age like that. We're all about the reality, and reality can sometimes be harsh. I'll take it in a different direction, and if you happen to remember where you were going, by all means, feel free to jump in. But
Yeah.
you touched on something I wanted to talk about, which is the financial impact of an injury. Because here in Canada, we kind of have it good because we have more or less universal health care. So even if we're doing independent wrestling, we get a bit of a boo-boo. We can just go wait for probably a couple hours, but we'll be seen, we'll be covered, and it won't cost us an arm and a leg, literally or metaphorically. I always admire American independent wrestlers because you guys don't have the same kind of coverage, and any one thing can go wrong. You're looking at a serious amount of medical costs and whatnot. So it really strikes a chord with me, your situation there, that you had to go through all of that just to practice a sport that you love, an activity, a pastime, something where you're maybe on the cusp of making a career out of it, and then you have that kind of a setback. So again, I feel like I'm kind of maybe rambling here, but all that
No,
to say,
I know what I was originally going, and I don't know why I took it there. No, what I was gonna say is that the reason why I had to look for financial services, and I didn't get that money.
Hmm.
The whole reason I was telling you about in the beginning is because I was going to move in. Ended up having to move in with Ian and his wife Patty because I had lost everything. Like I lost that job and I lost my place to live. I still had the second job, and then I picked up another job at FedEx. So I was working at Burger King and FedEx full time, and then still training and doing IWA shows, setting up, tear down, reffing, doing whatever I needed to do. And so when I first moved in with them, like I felt I needed to help financially assist. Like I had this feeling of guilt for staying there. So I took all the money I made from the jobs and paid bills. And then it got into a loop of all my money I was making was going towards their bills. So I couldn't really save up to do anything. And then I ended up losing the jobs because we would end up staying over for a show instead of getting up, and going and leaving, coming back. And I really had no say in it because I was with the whole group. So it's like, I can't really just tell them, hey, I got to go. So I ended up losing my jobs, which is whatever. And then I ended up doing just solely IWA for a long time. So when I broke my leg, I had worked for IWA for like 7 years at this point. Yeah, about 7 years. And I had lived with Ian Rotten and his wife and his kids. And we were supposed to like a family, and then broke my leg. And it was like, it was either keep wrestling and help pay the bills, or, don't. And then there's this guilt again. So I wrestled to continue paying bills, even though I knew my leg was broke. And then money that I was making was going towards a gambling habit. And so that it was just a vicious cycle. And I really feel like that's why my leg.
Not to cut you off, just to clarify, when you said to a gambling habit, did you mean yourself or did you mean Ian?
It's not me.
Okay.
And so like we were losing everything, and my leg wasn't healing, and the doctors couldn't explain why it didn't heal. And then an incident happened that I will not go into right now, and caused me to, like, I'm a very loyal person and I stay around as hardcore as I can, but something happened and it caused me to leave. And then because I left and I upset people, like lies were spread, and it really made me want to disappear. And then Tracy Smothers comes along and kind of helps me fall back in love with wrestling. But if I didn't break my leg, and I really think my leg not healing was maybe, you can believe in God, you can believe in a spiritual entity, something, but I really think it was something telling me that I was not where I was supposed to be. And the only reason I think that is because when I moved out, I went and stayed with my sister for a bit, and I got away from the drama and the stress and wrestling and stuff. And the doctors were amazed on how quick my leg healed. Like they were giving me 6 months, my leg was completely healed in 3. Like
Wow.
that's how amazed they were by it. But I wasn't around the stress and the drama and, that constant feeling of guilt and, am I doing enough to support the whole instead of what's best for me? And, I felt guilty for even afterwards thinking I need to do what's best for me, because I felt like I had been sucked into this thought of I was part of this family. And then I come to find out I was just a big piece of shit. So it sucks, but the leg break was probably the best thing to ever happen to me, because if I would have went on and made a career out of TNA or done something else, there is no telling if I would have ever come to that conclusion or realization of what was beyond the rose-colored glasses. That's where I was getting at with that. See how I come back around.
No, you did a good job of that. And I think definitely, regardless of what you believe in, everything does happen for a reason, even if we don't know what that reason is in the moment. In talking about IWA Mid-South and things that happened, I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that match that you had with Mike Levy that kind of became a bit of an incident. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to tell, your side of the story and what went on. I mean, so what exactly happened there with that match, and is it as bad as people make it out to be?
Okay, so let me answer the first part first. So how that match came to be, we were running Queen of the Death, And man, there was all the signs, but we kept trying to run Queen of the Death. We, with me doing King of the Death, we thought that maybe people were ready for this female alternative to death matches, and maybe they weren't, but we were going to try. And girls would drop out of the tournament like flies. They would take the booking, they'd be gung-ho about it, and then like a week or two before the show, they just drop out, or even a couple days before it, sometimes the day up. Like, we would just lose girls. So this year we tried to plan ahead. We had 4 extra girls on backup, and we ended up needing somebody. Like, we turned into a round robin tournament again, which sucks. But we ended up needing one more person. And I had put myself in King of the Death in the year before against Tank. And so Tank had an idea of putting himself in Queen, and me and Tank having a rematch, which would have been awesome. And so Mike Burns comes in from Smartwork Video. He's like, no. There's this guy that's out in the crowd. His name is Mike Levy. And he's on the internet and talks about how he should be in every deathmatch tournament. He's a backyard wrestler, but he claims he was trained by this guy. And he goes on, and Ian's like, well, where is he? And they say, well, he's sitting in the crowd. Ian's like, well, ask him if he wants to come back here. And so he comes back there. And Ian starts talking to him, and Ian, starts working out a deal with them and says, do you want to be in Queen of the Death? Mike answers yes. And then he said, okay, well, we just really need a match to advance Mickie. Do you know what a squash match is? And he said, yeah, he did. And of course, Ian's like, tell me what a squash match is. So he explains it to Ian. And Ian's like, okay, are you okay with doing that? He's like, sure. He's like, and then we'll bring you back, da-da-da. So we go out for the match. And we get in the ring, and we go to start, and he just hits me back. And I'm like, okay. So I hit him back. He hits me back, and we just keep going. I'm like, so then he would do something to me, and I'm like, all right, tit for tat. I do something to him, and we would keep going. The finish, I end up giving him a belly to belly off the top, but I didn't want to throw him because the ropes were too loose anyways. So I was going to, I ended up going with him, and I'm getting a barb stuck in my hand too. That sucked. But after I got the barb stuck in my hand, I just went straight in the back. I remember somebody coming in the back originally and saying, Ian needs you ringside. And I was like, no, I'm getting this thing taken out of my hand. I'm fine. I need to get ready for the next match, blah, blah, blah. Then Patty or somebody came. I think it was either Patty or it might have been her other son, Joey. I'm not sure. But somebody else came back and said, no, Ian really needs you ringside. So then I went ringside, and by the time I get out there, he's like laying on the ground, and there's people around, and Ian's cutting his promo, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then we get in the back, and I got told, I think 2 or 3 different things. I got told, one, that it was an angle that they were going to bring in ICP at a later date and do something with ICP and versus like Corp and them or something. And then I got told that they did it because they were mad because he was no selling or something. I don't know. I got told like 3 different stories. But after the Queen, he went back to his room, he showered, he came back, watched King of the Death match, and then I was the only one outside cleaning, and he came out and started helping me clean up. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was talking to him about the match, and I was actually talking about certain things. He seemed fine. And then he went and got us a beer, and we drank a beer. And I was like, all right. And then he went in, he hung around other people for a while and went home. And the next thing you know, I get a call from the police department saying they're investigating us for gang beatdown or something. I was like, oh.
So was that because he had pressed charges, or is this? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Apparently he had called, or somebody had called. I don't know. They said they couldn't tell us who had made the complaint, but.
Gotta love professional wrestling.
I found out like he was on camera sitting right there ringside, and like nothing was wrong. And then, like I said, he was afterwards. There's people taking pictures together, and he was helping me clean up outside because I was the only one doing it. And then he went in and drank a beer, and he hung out with everybody. I was like, okay. And then next thing you know, I was like,
oh. Well, I mean, that's pretty lame if he is the one behind it. I guess we'll never know. I guess it's gone and done, if he's even still in the business, if he's maybe watching this to, cash in on the 15th minute of his 15 minutes of fame. But speaking of, being in the later point of their career, would you say you're at the later point of your career, or do you still have many more years of doing this and want to continue doing this? Is the passion still burning inside you for the professional wrestling business?
So here's the thing. I cheated on wrestling with a marriage. It was stupid of me, I know. Okay. I learned my lesson. Thankfully, marriage life didn't ruin my chances with wrestling. So I worked out an agreement with wrestling now. What I'm saying is I don't know. I don't feel like I'm anything like anything I've ever been before, if that makes any sense. It feels like a new beast entirely this time. I feel more aggressive. I feel like I enjoy the whole physical aspect of it all. I enjoy the inside of the ring as well as the outside of the ring. I enjoy the weapons. I enjoy the fans. Holy shit, I love hardcore fans. Like hardcore fans, you're the best fans in the world. I don't care what y'all say. They are the best fans. They will let you know. Excuse me. They'll let you know exactly what's fucking terrible, and they'll shit on you if you're terrible. But at the same time, they are so fucking honest that if you're good, they're with you, and that's like a great feeling. And it lets you know exactly where you are and where you need to improve. Like you just got to be smart to listen to them. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. The hardcore fans are the ones that keep us in check. They're the ones that let us know that we're doing the kind of job that we should be doing. And, they'll give us the love when we deserve it, and they'll, let us know when we slip up. I got to ask, seeing something like we saw recently with AEW, I don't know if you follow AEW, but seeing Nick Gage do that main event against Chris Jericho in the Deathmatch, does that give you hope that, something like that could present itself for you in the near future?
No, I mean, I'm a lot of things, but I try not to be delusional. What I mean by that is what I'm doing is not, as dumb as this is going to sound, is not for me to advance in any stage. I would love to go to AEW. Would love it. I mean, I'd be dumb to tell you that I wouldn't. But at the same time, like I've learned throughout these years, and maybe age has brought me to a realization that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. But what I do, I try to do as well as I can, and I really try to enhance whoever I'm in the ring with, no matter what I do, because that's ultimately our goal. Our goal is to put on these matches that are hardcore, hard-hitting, brutal, just a spectacle, and do it with such a good rhythm and such a good chemistry between you and another person. Like what you're trusting each other to do is absolutely fucking insane if you think about it. I am trusting you with my body to swing light tubes and barbed wire and gusset plates. Holy crap. Like it's the games keep getting up. I am trusting you with these panes of glass. I am trusting you with my body because anything happen, you could cut my jugular or I could bleed out, easily. And to do this and trust somebody that much is so fucking deliciously intimate at the point of you'll never find something more raw and passionate to feel than when you're inside of a ring in a hardcore match with your blood flowing, their blood flowing. The fans are just live and you feel their energy and everything's just it's just fucking pure magic. There's no other, like it really is wrestling's worst drug. It's the most euphoric feeling you will ever feel, and I just love it.
Well, having been in a couple of hardcore matches myself, I definitely know what you're talking about, and I do think that I don't think that we've seen the last of you on a world stage. I do think that you would have a place. I think that you'd be surprised who listens to a little podcast like this and how far, word can spread. I think tons of people will watch this and be like, yeah, I remember her. Let's keep an eye on what she's been up to. And, I call me an optimistic fool, but when it comes down to it, I always say never And I think there are good things in your future. But hey, you know, I'm a little biased because, like you said, you're good at enhancing people, and I feel I've been enhanced by your presence here on this episode. So thank you so much for, you know, being graceful enough to.
Love it.
What was that?
You're such a brown noser. I love it.
Hey, no, I'm the harbinger of truth. I just speak from the heart. You know, people think I rehearse this kind of stuff, but no, that's just me being me.
Yeah, you hear and go, okay, this is what I'm going to say. I know exactly what you do.
And with that said, for people like myself who want to continue following your journey, maybe you could let them know some of your social media handles, where they can find you, where they can see you. The floor is yours.
So I've got a Twitter handle at Bloody Mickie. You can find me on Facebook, Mickie Knuckles. You can find me on Instagram at Mickie Knuckles. I try to keep things as simple as possible because, let's face it, the world's too complicated anyway.
Excellent. And, you know, you're still wrestling, still going toe-to-toe with the best, still many more years to come. And again, like I said, very glad to have had you on here as a guest. Would love to have you back in the future. And,
real quick, for those of you that are listening, I have seen your all's pleads for a certain match. I've been paying attention. Do you know what match I'm talking about?
I do not.
There apparently, word is on the street that people would like to see me versus Sadiqa. So I'm very down for that match, whenever, wherever. Like, we don't even need a ring. I mean, just, it'll be fine.
All right, Sadiqa, the challenge has been laid down. What are you going to do about it? Let's make that match happen, folks. All right. So with that said, we're just about at the end of this, but like I said, you're always welcome to come on here anytime. I am very proud to call you a friend, and I do hope we will get you up here in Montreal. I know there's a lot of ladies who would love to go toe-to-toe with you, as are some of the men, although a lot of them I personally think are cowards here in Montreal. But there are a select few that do have the cojones to be willing to step in the ring with a devastating, dangerous force like yourself. So I do hope we get to meet in person, and who knows, maybe even share the same ring. So for Mickie Knuckles, I am the Harbinger of Truth, Jeremy Prophet. This has been another exciting episode of Jofo in the Ring, where, as we like to always say, wrestling is life. I just got to ask, because it came up in the interview, is Knuckles your real last name?
Yes.
Because when you said the nurse said to you, Miss Knuckles, I was like, oh, wow. Like, I always thought that was what a great name that is.
Yeah, no, when I first started wrestling, like before I actually debuted, right before the last training session, Hero and Mark Wolf and Ian and a couple other guys after the training session was sitting around, and they were like, okay, we got to come up with a name for her. And so they came up with some really weird fucking names. Like, one name was, what was it? One Tough Cunt. OTC or something. So they wanted me to come out to that. And then they said something about Lucky Bottoms because my hair was naturally red and I had these freckles anyways. And they wanted me to come out as Lucky Bottoms. I was like, oh, Jesus. Could you imagine those two promo pics? Like, Tough Little Cunt and Lucky Bottoms. Like, the promo pics itself would have been like, that would have been questionable, right? And so I was like, okay, we can't do that. I was like, why don't I just come out to my real name? And Ian's like, what is it? And I said, Mickie Knuckles. He said, great, I love it. So I had been wrestling at this time for about 3 months. And we were at a hotel up in Wisconsin. And we went to check in, and they didn't have their ID on them. And they asked if I did, and I said, sure. So I went to give him my ID. And Ian had my ID and went to hand it to the clerk and realized my name was legit Mickie L. Knuckles. And he chased me around the hotel lobby screaming at me saying, your real fucking name is Mickie Knuckles? I thought you were working me, blah, 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 blah. No, so.
Wow, that's a great story. That'll make a good bonus clip if we could use that. Yeah.
So, Jofo, I'm a gargle a shot for Kurt Hennig and everybody before we go.
Oh, no.
Jofo, thank you guys.